Hello.
Hello,
Hi, Liam.
how are you?
Baruch Hashem, how are you?
Good, thank
Good.
you. You changed your hairstyle.
I just got a haircut.
Okay,
There's not more of it than there was before, but thank you for noticing. Maybe it's also darker.
I notice everything.
Mhm.
Maybe a defect.
Gotcha. Go, kids.
Evening, Norm, Abe, Jorge.
Aquí
Yeah.
estamos.
Good evening, good evening.
Good evening. Oh, Walton,
Hello.
again, you're a little bit not clear today.
What can I do? So are you not clear, but it's okay.
I am always clear.
I know. Okay.
Where is our esteemed teacher?
How did it go?
I'm gonna stop it. There'll be a lot.
Evening, everybody.
Hello, Ernie.
Hi, Chaim.
Hello.
Hi, Norm.
Oh, and hi, how are you?
Hi, Ernie.
Hi, Norm. Hi, Yaakov.
Baruch
Hi.
Hashem, thank you.
Hi, Ernie. Everybody saying
Hi,
hi.
Walter. Hi, Walter. Okay, we're on page 53. Volume 15. By the way, volume 16s are coming to me. I'll have them probably in a week. So
Okay,
we will have the volume 16s. There was a problem during the Christmas shipping. That's what happened to the last. That's why there was such a delay. So I'm having them send me the volumes way in advance, so we don't have the same problem that we had last time. So we can get it at the lower price.
okay.
Ernie, you should 53 or not 73? Which one?
53.
No? No?
Yeah,
Yeah, we talked about the shiurim of kazayas and what the shear is, and based on displacement.
I think that's correct, 53.
Yeah.
Okay.
We learned above that in order to be obligated to recite a bracha achrona for solid food, you must consume the size of a kazayas within the time it takes to eat half a loaf of bread. We said anywhere between 4 and 9 minutes. Or the halakha is more ambiguous with respect to eating a whole fruit or vegetable known as a birya, even if it's less than the size of a kazayas. The Yerushalmi records an incident with Rabbi Yochanan, from which it is evident that one should recite a bracha achrona upon a whole fruit or vegetable, even if it's less than the size of a kazayas. Rav Yochanan Nosov Zesa, Ubirch Lefanav Lachla. Rav Yochanan ate an olive and made a bracha before and after. Hav Rav Chia bar Vav Mistakel Bey. Rav Chia was watching this. Armalei Rav Yochanan. Bavloi, you from Babylonia. Lama at Mistakel Bey. Rav Yochanan lived in Eretz Yisrael. He's the main author of the Yerushalmi, which is the Talmud that was created in Eretz Yisrael. So he told him, "You Babylonian, what are you staring at me for? Les lech koshru mimin shiva ton brach lefanav lachra." Don't you also hold, you Babylonians, that you have to make a bracha of things that are of the 7 species, right? Eretz chitus or gefen ten avron eretz zeit shemen udvash, and zeit is an olive. It's one of the 7 species, and that you have to make a bracha both before and after. So the Gemara answered for Rav Chia Islay. No, he does certainly hold of that, but umatzri chalei. What was he having a problem with? Mipnei shigal into mimato. So think about an olive. It's got a pit inside of it. So by definition, eating an olive, you're eating less than the kazayas. Because you're not eating the pit displaces enough food to make eating that olive less than the kazayas. So he was questioning, why did he make a bracha afterwards? We already established last week that even if you eat a mashahu, you have to make a bracha on something. Not bread, but even if you drink a glass of water, you're considered a gazlan if you don't make a bracha. And that doesn't require a shear. But we learned that certainly the bracha mein sheva, the bracha mein shalosh, yala michya, requires at least a kazayas. V'lesle Rav Yochanan shekalintu mimatetas. Does Rav Yochanan not hold that having the seed doesn't reduce the size? Mavle Rav Yochanan ishum birya. So Rav Yochanan explained, and this whole Gemara is from the Talmud Yerushalmi, that even though he admits that it was a case of eating less than a kazayas volume of food, but it's a beria, it's a complete creature. Now, it's not a living thing, but it's a fruit, and this has the status of a berry as well. The place where we have berry and halacha classically is in Yoredeya, where that we have certain rules of nullification in a taruvis, in a mixture. But a beria that falls in, afilu be'elef loy bottle, right? An insect falls in to a dish, even if it's small. If it's an entire insect, afilu be'elef loy bottle, it would not be bottle. So that's another use of the concept of beria. Back to the Tzurba. Milsad Rav Yochanan Amre. From this statement of Rav Yochanan, we can learn. Even if you ate a single grape, or one pomegranate seed, it needs a bracha before and after. Now, the Bavli in Masech the Brachos has a different incident with Rav Yochanan, where it seems to suggest that he was not concerned about this issue of beria. Odam Rav Chia Barab. Ani says Rav Yochanan, I once saw Rav Yochanan she'achal zayis maliach u'barchal atchila v'sof. He ate a salted or marinated olive, and he made a bracha before and after. Amle Rav Yochanan Rav Zera. Rav Yochanan hechem avarch al zayis maliach. How did Rav Yochanan make this bracha? Kivan d'shakla legarine, since there's a pit that has to be removed, batzer le'shiura. You have less than a zayis, kazayis of olive. How did he make a bracha afterwards? Amle misarvis kazayis gadol be'inan, kazayis benani be'inan. You don't need a large olive. You need a small olive. And I guess if you started off with a big olive and you remove the seed, there was enough olive meat to be the size of a medium-sized olive, which would be Machai of the bracha achron. Which, how come the Bavli didn't give an answer? Oh, it's a beria. Seems to imply that Rav Yochanan doesn't know that this beria concept. So, in this Bavli, it seems to suggest, according to Rav Yochanan, that one does not recite a bracha achrona, even on a whole fruit or vegetable, if it's less than a kazayis. Rishonim disagree as to how to relate to this machlokas between the Bavli and the Yerushalmi. Tosfos. This was an earlier Tosfos that we quoted in Brachas 39a, where we were dealing with the minimum of mount that you need to recite. So this Tosfos continues. Batzerle. Mishum de beberia mevarchin afilu pachos mekazayis. If there's a full creature, full creation, you make a bracha even if it's less than a kazayis. V'choylek al gemor didon. At Yerushalmi, says Tosfos, is in contradiction with our Gemara. Kidemash ma'acha im kain ein halacha kamosa shel Yerushalmi. The halacha is not like the Yerushalmi. However, v'harav Yosi hayim mefare sheYerushalmi ein cholek hagmor shalanu. Somehow Tosfos had a Masorah that Rabbi Yosi would explain Yerushalmi that it was not in argument with the Bavli. Da'acha Mairi shehusra garinim v'nimla. Here in the Bavli, it's discussing the pits were removed, the olive was salted, imkein la'ayik kabrioso. So it wasn't a beria, because since you removed the seed, it's not like it was created. Avalim achlo sholem, if you did eat it with the pit, afilu ma'afreda acha shel rimon, even if it's like one seed of a pomegranate, varchal of tchila, the sof. Ugmar Yerushalmi hasavar shazayis ayasholim. Yerushalmi thought that it was an intact olive with the seed. That's why over there, they had to come up with the answer that it was a beria. But really, einan cholkim. According to the first explanation of Tosfos, the Bavli holds that one does not recite a bracha achrona when eating a beria less than the size of a kazayis, while the Yerushalmi holds that one does. But according to the second explanation of Tosfos, the Bavli refers to an olive that was salted and whose pit was removed, and is therefore not a beria. But if one ate a whole fruit with the pit, one would indeed recite a bracha achrona because it's a beria, and therefore it's an agreement with the Yerushalmi. The Rambam and the Rif, in their halachic codifications, did not include any rule about beria. The Beis Yosef, in his commentary on the Tur, explains that in their opinion, the Bavli indeed disagrees with the Yerushalmi, And as usual, the halacha follows the Bavli, that whether it's a barrier or not has no bearing on our issue of you make the bracha achrona afterward. But nevertheless, the Beis Yosef concludes that due to the lingering uncertainty, it is proper not to eat only a beria that is less than kazayis. That means you run into trouble if you have a beria less than kazayis, then you run into this issue, machlokas between the Bavli and the Yerushalmi. Let's see how the Beis Yosef words that. Hariv kotzav stam, the kolecha de leka kazayis loboy brachel. So the Rif basically said that if it's not a kazayis, you don't need a bracha achrona. Lo chilek ben davar shu beri lo davar she'ena beri. And the Rif made no distinction whether it's a beri or not. So it's going with the Bavli. The Chena Rambam sos on the cause of Per Gimel, the Bepachos Mekazayis and Mavarch Lebesof, also lo chilek, and therefore he also made no distinction between whether it was a beri or not. Nirish a pashut land. So Rav Yosef Karo understands that for the Rambam and the Rif, it was pashut that Yerushalmi is arguing polygat didan on our Talmud, meaning Talmud Bavli, and velo kaimalan kavase, and they don't pass like Yerushalmi. We call makom kiva to kol hanach revusim mistapkim medavar. So there are people in doubt. Yesh li zorshel lechol ber levadim ein bo kazayis. Make sure that if you're going to eat a whole fruit or vegetable, that it's bigger than kazayis. And then of course you'd have to make a bracha achrona. Rav Karo in his Shulchan Aruch ruled that way. Yesh mistapkim loymar. Some are mesupik, they're in doubt. Shal davar shu kibriyaso. What do you do if it's kiberia but less than kazais? You go in gargir shel onav, one grape, or one seed of pomegranate. Shemavarchem la'achav aval pishein bo kazais. Some think that you have to make a bracha achrona even though they're not kazais because it's a beria. So says the Shulchan Aruch, don't eat it. Says the Ramah, v'lo mikri beria ela im achlu kamos shuhu. It's got to be something that you eat as a whole. For example, we don't eat an olive with its pit and swallow it. I mean, I guess you spit it out, but I don't think that's what they're talking about. I think they're talking about something that you would eat without discarding something. If the seed is removed from the olive, it's not a beria. The Mishnah Berurah clarifies some of this. There were those that made a bracha achrona after eating a beria less than kazayis because of its chashivus. But if it was chopped up or broken up or ground up before you ate it, it's not a berry anymore. Kimoshuhu, dainu imagarin. If you eat it with the pit, even if the pit, vafilu magarin ein roilef klal, kiven shalkonim bola kula. Now, if you swallow it whole with the pit, even though normally it's not eaten, then you would make the bracha achrona. Magen Avram suggests that Ramah, where he says you have to eat it the way it is, suggests that Ramah is referring to fruits such as grapes. But one generally eats the seeds, and he rules in accordance with the opinion of Rabbeinu Yonah that such fruits are not designated a beria without the seed. Others, such as the Gra and the Mishnah Berurah, interpret the Ramah differently. Page 56. Avalim lokach. But if you remove the pit, then the Mishnah Berurah said you don't have to make the bracha achrona. Kol shekain im nechtach me'at ma'abri gufa. some of the fruit was cut away. If some of the fruit fell away because of cooking it, because it falls apart, it's not called a berry anymore. Which types of produce is included within the category of a berry? Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank writes that he's uncertain whether it includes only Shiva Saminim or other fruits and vegetables as well. The Divrei Yerushalmi Anizkar Le'el, the berry lo tzorch shir, that it doesn't have to be less than kazayas. Nistapakti, he's in doubt. Im zeh dafka b'shiva saminim, or b'chol haperos, like an apple. Nami amrin de be'oichel berya chayv levarach bracha achron afu pochos mikazayis. I mean, an apple is more than a kazayas, so that's not relevant. A date, maybe a small date with its pit. I mean, I think an olive is smaller than a date, so I think a date, because koseves, which is the Shir Yom Kippur, is a date, so that's bigger. So l'chora, that you'd always have to make a bracha achrona for a date, bigger than a kazayis. So what's it like? Maybe a blueberry. Maybe a blueberry is smaller than an olive, but it's a berry. So that might be a problematic fruit according to Beis Yosef, that you shouldn't eat it, or you have to eat something else that a bigger thing in order to be machayev you the bracha achrona, and then you eat the blueberry along with it. The Mishnah Berurah seems to indicate that the rule of berry applies even to fruit, not of the Shivas Aminim. Huadin, a yagida, right, which is a blueberry. Oh, kidney sachas, like a leg, like a lentil bean, certainly small but intact. Given that neither of these types of produce are associated with any of the Shivas Aminim, right? A blueberry is not Sheva Minim, neither are the legumes. So Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach Medayek inferred that the rule of berry applies to all fruits, vegetables, and legumes. Heinam ra amnam sheshivas aminim chashuvim heim. The Gamish will say in this korban ferish b'Torah, the Sheva Aminim are important. They were mentioned in the Torah. Samuch la'aposuk shenemar bo ve'achal tazvat v'arach. Mikol makom harei mefurish ki ataz barachayim siman reish yud ahod ha'kosav shalom mechaber b'seif aleph shenachol nizar sholechol berya pachos mikashir. You should not eat a fruit or vegetable less than a kashir. Da'ainu yagadish, which is a mulberry. Yagadish moil, bear, mole bear, yagadish mole bear. Right? Isn't that interesting? Mole bear, like a mulberry something, and then, but it's also a yagada. Yagada must be the Yiddish word for berry. And then,
Yes,
so there would be a yagada, and then a mulberry yagada. I guess in a regular yagada is a blackberry or blueberry. I think blueberry and blackberry are the same. No, the blackberry are ridged like a raspberry. And the blueberry are those small little round ones. So he warns you, lo yachal achas l'chud, don't eat one of these small ones by itself. Kama mogen avram kosa, the kitnius achas mikri beria, even one legume, like a pea or a lentil. Aval pi sharbeg gadlim b'shavet echad, even though there's many peas in one pod. V'gam huva sham, the dag cotton, a small fish, is mikri beria. You notice they never raise the point, oh, these things are not part of the Sheva Minim. So that's how Shlomo Zalman sort of proves that it doesn't have to be the Sheva Minim. Some Achronim, such as the Or Litzion, right, that even a slice of a citrus fruit is considered a beria, and one should ideally be careful not to eat it alone if it is less than the size of a kazayis. Plach shel pri hador. Afa plachim aktanim shebetoch ha-plachim agdolim shebepamalya. A pomelo. Small slices within the large pomelo. They are chashuvim kol echad mehem keberia. V'chein garinim chamaniot sunflower seeds. V'garine delas pumpkin seeds. Chashuvim beria. V'ochlim kamosh shehem pachos mikashiareu. Besafik in chayv bracha achrona. Don't eat less than a shear of these things, because it's going to be a doubt whether you have to make a bracha afterwards. L'chein ein lechol lechatchila plach sholem or garin sholem elim ken oichlem kazais. Make sure you eat a kazais of these things, or shiachto mehamad, or cut some away. Kidei shlo yeh beria shlem. The Piskei Tshuva notes that Achronim disagree as to whether removing an edible seed also removes the fruit status as a beria, or only removing an edible seed removes the status. Conversely, they disagree as well, where one eats a fruit together with an inedible seed. Mishnah bra pishitos hadivrei chamudas vagra bier divrei Ramah afilu begarinim she'ein ru'im lachila klal. That if you have a seed that's not edible, im notal mishum agarin lo nikra beria. That if you have a fruit that has a seed in it, and you remove the fruit, you remove the seed, it loses its status as a berry. The kol sheken begarin haroim. Certainly, we said if you have a food and you chop some of the food away, well, that's certainly going to change it from a berry. So he says the same thing. A seed that's edible, certainly if you remove the seed, you've removed the item from the status of a berry. A seed itself, if it's not edible, it's not called a beria. We find poskim in the later generations, sheviu la'alocha, especially Magen Avraham b'divrei Ramah, shedavka begarin aroy la'achila. In order to remove the status of a beria, and you remove the seed to do it, the seed has to be edible. Kishalo ochlo nitzlu mechshash beria. But fruit that normally you don't eat their seed. Even if you take the seed out, so the removal of the seed in that case doesn't help. If at the time of the bracha, I guess the bracha rishona, the pre was intact with its seed inside. But if you remove the seed before your bracha, and therefore you've taken away the problem. What about a peel? So everyone agrees that a peel that nobody eats, removal of the peel and the fruit is intact, think about an orange. If you remove the peel and you have the whole orange, that would be a berry. Now that's clearly bigger than kazayas, so it's not a problem. But if it's a peel that is edible, if it's removed from the fruit bottle, even if the fruit remains intact, since you removed an edible part, you are mevatel its status of a berry. The Yalkut Yosef rules that one who eats a berry that is less than kazayas does not recite a bracha achrona, though he agrees that ideally one should avoid such a situation.
Ernie,
Yes,
sorry, what would be the exact definition of like a barrier?
a bear is an intact creature. And
Right.
it
So
doesn't have to be a lot, but an orange,
what
an
would
orange is a berry.
no, but what would be the size? In other words, it's an intact creature, but what's the size of a creature? In other words, what's the
No,
In other
the chumrah is like this. Normally, you don't get malchus unless you eat a kazayas of a prohibited food. But
Right.
if you eat an insect and it's a complete insect and it's a beria, there's a chumrah.
so
Like
then it could be a size of an ant.
it could be the size less than a kazayas, yes.
A size of,
Any, what about a strawberry that has the seeds on the outside, right? But you don't peel it.
Yep, those are edible. You eat the seeds of a strawberry.
So it's a berry.
No, so if the strawberry was smaller than an olive and you removed some of the seeds, it would not be a berry anymore because both are edible. It's like removing, if you cut the strawberry in half, it loses its status of a berry. So Walter, the item has to be intact.
so hold on a second. So what happens if you took a piece of an orange? In other words, the orange is considered a berry. But what happens if you took somebody give you a piece of an orange?
Right, so you see, this Orlet Sion said, even a slice of a citrus fruit, including the smaller slices in a pomelo, would be a berry on their own. That's his shita. So what they're saying is, so first of all, Walter, even a slice of an orange is going to be bigger than an olive. So you don't have a problem.
I
It's
don't
only
know.
if it's less, it's
If
only
you
if
get-
it's less than the kazayas that creates the problem of a berry.
No, but if you take a piece of sometimes a piece of an orange can be very thin and it can be less than what you would consider an olive. An olive sometimes can be very big, an olive can be very small. There's no a green olive can be very big and a black olive can be very small. There's no.
So we
There's no
said last week, we gave definitely, we said last week, we said it's 28 cc's,
Chaim, how much is 28?
27 cc's, less than an ounce, a little bit less than an ounce.
An ounce is a serious amount.
Okay, so that's why if there's any question, eat more than a kazayas of it, and then you'll be chayiv the bracha achron.
Bracha achron. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's so the Yalkut Yosef says, if you eat less than kazayis, and you drink less than revius, you have to make the bracha rishoina, but so he disagrees with this whole berry business. The gon gagir or onav, or shalrimon, a seed of a pomegranate or grape. Don't put yourself in the suffix. What about a machshava? We have seen in this year that fruits of the Shiva Saminim for which Eretz Yisrael is praised have a special status in halacha with regard to certain issues. Now, I just was thinking, remember, an orange does not get an alamichya. It's not in Eretz Yisrael. So when you're talking about a bracha achron, you're talking about a borin nefoshos. That's the bracha achron you're talking about. Because we only make an alamichya, ala priv, ala bal. We only make the bracha mein shalosh for a fruit in Eretz Yisrael. If you eat an apple or an orange, you just make a borin nefoshos. You don't make an alamichya. But you'd still have to make a borin nefoshos. That's the bracha achrona that it would require. Although no distinction is made as to whether the produce itself was actually grown in Eretz Yisrael or not, the Bach comments that the fruits of Eretz Yisrael contain special holiness that absorbs the holiness of Hashem's presence in the land of Israel. Says the Bach. The Bach is another commentator to the Tur. You have the Beis Yosef, and then you have the Bach. Kedusha Sa'aretz, Anishpos Ba Mikudesha Sa'aretz, Ha'Elyona. Eretz Yisrael's holiness is influenced by the holiness of the upper worlds. Hi nishpas gam beperoseh sheyonkim mikdushas hashchina shechenes bekerv haaretz. The fruits are influenced and basically suck the holiness from the Shechina that's there. Ki al ken yizir v'omer b'sof parshas Masei. V'lo tetameh sa'aretz asher atem yoshvim ba, asher ani shochen b'socha, ki ani Hashem shochen b'soch bnei Yisrael. Today, fruits and vegetables from Eretz Yisrael are obtainable all over the world. Many people visit Eretz Yisrael on a regular basis. We should be thankful for every opportunity we have to consume this special produce. Hopefully, the more opportunities we have to consume produce filled with Kedusha,
Yeah.
the
So
more
if
we
you-
can succeed in infusing ourselves in the special holiness of Eretz Yisrael. Yes.
If you eat a Jaffa orange, you would have to make a borei nefashos.
Yeah, it's only the Sheva Minim, even if it's grown in Eretz Yisrael. Orange in Eretz Yisrael doesn't get an alakut.
They saying that all fruit in Eretz Yisrael has the
Have
kedusha.
holiness, have holiness, but
Yeah, but
Torah-
so you ate more than a kzait by an orange. You eat a kzais. So why wouldn't you make a borei nefashot if it comes
You
from
would.
Eretz Yisrael? You would.
But you do it in America too,
I'm saying that's right. You do it in Chutz La'aretz as well.
right?
If you ate the Jaffa orange and you ate the kazah and the whole thing, so then you would make a borei nefashos.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
and the converse is true too. If you ate an olive that was grown in Chutz La'aretz, you still make an alamechia.
Yes, that's also true. But Yaakov, you wouldn't say al peroseha. You would say if you're in doubt where the fruit was, you would just say ala peros.
Correct, I think we learned that, but
We learned that.
yeah, but
That-
you would
that-
still
that-
say.
that-
you'd
that's
still
the
say
one
alamechia.
That's the nafkamina.
Right. But you wouldn't make a bar nefashos on it, you would make an alamechia.
You would make a main shava, main shalom. Okay, let's start. Hilchos Tfilas Haderech, page 73. Very interesting shitos here. Right, we're going to see the shita, the machlokas achronim regarding that. Okay. In previous shiurim, we have studied the halachos of brachos recited before and after eating, and in the next few shiurim, we will learn about brachos recited at other times. Tfilas Haderech, Birchas HaGomel, Birchas Shechianu, brachos recited upon seeing certain natural phenomena. when one travels, one is often exposed to more potential risks and hazardous situations than in the confine of one's home and city. Certainly true in earlier times, still true today. So for this reason, the Gemara Masechta Brachos states that one is obligated to recite a special tefillah known as Tefillah Saderech when embarking on a trip.
Ernie, so before you continue, a question I'd love to answer,
Yes.
applies to everyone here, is I'm sure most of us have taken a trip to Palm Springs. And the question is, on the way to Palm Springs, do you say Tefillah Saderech? And the reason that I'm asking the question is because, as I remember, when we learned I learned the last time, is that you don't say Tefillah Saderech until you leave the boundary of the city, or I think it's 1 parsah or something like that outside the boundary of the city. When you go to Palm Springs, you go from one city to the next city to the next city to the next city, and there's houses and population the entire way.
Okay, we're going to see. There's going to be a machlokas achronim regarding traveling from city to city.
No, it's not just city to city. It's cities that their boundaries are literally next to each other. It's like going
No,
from.
but when you go to Palm Springs, you do go through an area of uncivilized area. You know, it's mountainous. There's no,
If you go on the 60, that's true.
and even the 10. The
Mm,
10 right before you get to Palm, banning there. There's a stretch where Hadley's is. There's a stretch there where there's nothing going on. I think you can.
there is houses, and I've driven it many times. There are houses.
Yeah, but you go past these windmills over there. What, you going to make a broch on the windmills? I mean, it's not a city.
No. I think but we'll see when you have to make the bracha. Let's hold on to Chaim's great shaila. Let's hold on. We're gonna learn all of these. We're gonna learn all of the parameters of Tefillah Sader. When you have to make the bracha and etc. For example, Chaim, you say that you shouldn't make the bracha until you've actually left the city. I mean, my minig, when I'm on a plane and we're about, the moment the plane starts moving, I say Tefillah Saderech. I'm still in Los Angeles. I don't have to wait until my plane has left the environs of Los Angeles before I make Tefillah Saderech. I think you can say Tefillah Saderech the moment you start moving.
That's my minhag too, to say it, and I think that's because at that moment when the plane starts moving, everyone knows that takeoff is one of the, technically the more quote unquote dangerous time of a trip. So it makes more sense to say it because you're embarking on something very different than getting into a car and driving.
I see. So you want to say the trigger is different. The trigger might be leaving a city there.
Yeah, but that's not the law. You didn't leave the city. You're saying I do the same thing, but you didn't leave the city. You're on the ground still, and it could be that you stop and you don't take off immediately. So why are you saying, when the plane starts moving, you go along the runway, and then they stop and then they take off. So. But
well, all the historically, obviously, there's nothing we've seen in halacha that talks about a plane taking off. Maybe there is some halacha about getting on a boat, and the moment a boat, leaves a port, would you say Tefillah Saderech even though you are within swimming distance of the port you're leaving? So, I think it depends on the vessel you're getting into as well.
I once asked David Feinstein the question of when do you say Tefillah Saderech on a plane, and he said, and he always followed his father's opinion, as exactly what you said, Ernie. As soon as the plane starts to accelerate for takeoff, that's when you say Tefillah Saderech. So that was Rav Moshe Shita.
Anyway, it's good.
I think this discussion that we're having now is outstanding because we're going to get all these questions answered.
But hold on a second. That's when the plane starts accelerating. But a lot of people say that Tefillah Saderech the plane pulls away from the gate and it
That's when
starts.
that's when I do it.
Yes, but that's not accelerating.
It's
That's
not
not-
accelerating, but first of all,
That's not accelerating.
first of all,
It's
Yaakov's
not taking
comment,
off.
they
So-
won't allow you to have your phone out for safety reasons. They tell you to turn it off at the time when you're accelerating already for takeoff. You're not allowed to have the phone on. So I think for
Well,
practical
No,
reasons,
no, you,
do
you
it
can't
then.
have the phone on. You
You can
can't
have
have
the
a
phone
computer.
on, but
You
you can have it on airplane
Yeah.
mode.
Right.
Airplane mode, right, okay.
Well, you could have your own Tfilas Derech, and many people who travel often know it by heart. But nevertheless, that is the question I asked Reb David, and he said, as soon as the plane starts to accelerate for takeoff, that's when
Yeah,
you say.
that makes sense.
Okay. Well, let's see what we get mentioned here in Tzurba. So let's learn the source Gemara for it. The Sech the Brachos, Kaftes Amid Beis. Amar le Eliyahu Rav Yehuda, Achved Rav Sola Chasid. No one other than Eliyahu Navi appeared to Rav Yehuda, the brother of Rav Sola Chasid. Lo tirtach v'lo techti. If you don't get angry, you're not going to sin. Lo tirvi v'lo techti. Don't get drunk, and you won't sin. Then the third advice, I guess this is life coach. Kisha'ata yotz l'derech. When you're about to go on a trip, hamlech bekonecha v'tzei. Discuss it with your creator. And what does that mean? My hamlech bekonech v'tzei. What does that mean? On Rav Yaakov Rav Chisda zu tfilas haderech. You have to say tfilas haderech. On Rav Yaakov Rav Chisda. Kol hayotze l'derech tzarich l'spalot tfilas haderech. My tfilas haderech. The Gemara gives us the text. Yiratzon v'nech Hashem Elokai. Shetolichenu l'shalom. V'tatzidenu l'shalom. Lead me to peace, direct my steps. Tatzideni, like a tza'ad, is a march or a parade even. So that's what that means. Direct my steps. Tatzideni l'shalom. V'tisbechenu l'shalom. Meaning, rescue me. Excuse me, guide me. I would say bisoymech. V'tatzileni mikaf kol oyev v'oyev baderech. Save me from enemies, v'tishlach bracha b'masei yadai. And they knew that people travel for business, so give me bracha on what I do. V'titneinu l'chein l'chesed rachamim v'nechol v'nechol ro'ei. Give me chen chesed and rachamim. Baruch ato Hashem shomeh tefillah. Amra Abaya, Lo'olam lishtif inif nafshe badi tzibura. You should include yourself with the congregation. Hechi nema, Yiratzon v'nech Hashem Elokeinu, as opposed to Yiratzon v'nech Hashem Elokai. It made it a personal God. As opposed to here where Abaya is saying, make sure you say Hashem Elokeinu. And instead of saying Shetolicheni l'shalom, you say Shetolichenu l'shalom. We. Put yourself in a group and daven for the group. Similar to what we learned, that if you need a refuah, you should daven for somebody else first, and then you will be answered. Now, the Tzurba gives us the text according to the two nuschos. Nusach Ashkenaz, Yiratzon v'nech Hashem Elokeinu v'kev v'seinu. So the Nusach did accept Abaya. Shetolichenu shalom, v'tatzidenu shalom, v'tatrichenu shalom, v'tisbechenu shalom, exactly like the Gemara. Here's a new phrase. V'tagi'enu limchoz cheftzenu. Let us reach our destination. L'chaim u'lesimcha l'shalom. And then if you plan to go back the same day, you should say v'tachzirenu l'shalom. Otherwise, no. V'tatzilenu mikol oyev v'orev listim v'chayos ros baderech. So the listim and the chayos ros baderech is a new phrase in the tefillah. Umekomine peranios hamitrakshos lavo. That's also a new phrase. La'olam. Then back to the Gemara. V'titneinu l'cheinu l'chas rachim v'einechu v'einenu kol ro'enu. Nusach Sfard adds. V'tigmlenu chazim tovim v'tishma kol tachanunenu. Ki kel shomet tefillah v'tachanun ato baruch ato Hashem shomet tefillah. It's also a new ending. The Nusach Eidot HaMizrach is shorter. Yiratzon Hashem Elokeinu v'Seinu shetolchen shalom tezen shalom tizbechen shalom. V'tatzein mikol koyrev oyev baderech. V'tishlach bracha b'masei yadeinu. V'titnein l'chen l'chazrim v'neim chol hareinu baruch ato Hashem shomet tefillah. It looks like the Eidot HaMizrach accepted more the version of the Gemara. As we will see as we continue the Shir, the Shulchan Aruch codifies the recitation of Tfilas Haderech as a practical halacha. The Rambam doesn't mention Tfilas Haderech in the form as it's described in the Gemara. Before discussing more specific details related to Tfilas Haderech, it is worthwhile to briefly discuss the nature of Tfilas Haderech and whether it's defined as a bracha or tefillah. Tosfos assume that it is defined as a tefillah and explains that for this reason, this paragraph does not need to begin with the standard formulation of a bracha, baruch ato Hashem. Tfilas haderech shechoysim ve'ena potech b'baruch. Some brachas start with a baruch and end with a baruch. Some, there's an introduction, and then you're Messiah. Some say it's not a bracha. It's a praise and a tefillah. The Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah explained why Tfilas Haderech does not begin with the word Baruch Atah. In their opinion, Tfilas Haderech is defined as a bracha and follows the halacha guidelines of brachas. In the case of a more lengthy bracha, a bracha arucha, that is juxtaposed to another bracha, which is considered bracha smucha lechaverta, one does not begin with Baruch Atah Hashem. Think about Ava Rabbah that you say before Shema. You have this whole thing, and then you answer Baruch Atah Hashem habocher b'mo Yisrael ba'ava. So, Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah therefore explained that since the formulation of the concluding bracha is Shomer Tefillah, which in its original form in the Amida is part of a bracha that is adjacent to another, then even when it is not adjacent to another bracha, we do not add the word baruch. Matzinu b'Talmud b'Tfilas Haderech she'ena potachas b'baruch. V'chosim b'Shomer Tefillah mitnei l'kivan de b'Shmona Esrei birchas Shomer Tefillah tzmuch lechaverta. Imachshav ena tzmuch lechaverta l'chashin lachi. Meaning Shema Kolenu in Shmona Esrei, and then we add Baruch Atah Shomer Tefillah. But all of these brachas have been connected to Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Elokeinu Elokei Avraham Elokei Yitzchak. It's called, it already had an opening bracha. So what the Rabbeinu Yonah Talmidim are saying, so since Baruch Shomer Tefillah, even though it's not technically considered the same kind of bracha, you can rely on it. But the Pnei Yoshua says that the Tfilas Haderech is a tefillah. He says, this was not instituted like all other brachos by the Anshe Knesset Gdola. Davare lesa. Midamarle Eliyahu Rabbi Yehuda Hamlech Bekonech would say, when Eliyahu Navi said to Rabbi Yehuda, go consult with your Creator and go, that implies Elaloshin Tefillah Ba'alma. Okay. So let's stop here. And the topics that we're going to discuss, the minimum distance for Tfilas Haderech and when to recite it. At what point does one recite Tfilas Haderech? Is it distance or time of travel? What about cities or town within a parsa? So there's gonna be, I think our questions will reciting Tfilas Haderech in a car, Tfilas Haderech for multiple trips on a multiple day trip. Of course, women in Tfilas Haderech. So I think we'll cover the sugya very, very completely. Any questions, comments, or wrote?